It wasn't just a clash of empires. It was a biological suicide wrapped in a gray tunic. How did the invincible Third Reich, a machine built to rule for a millennium, end up liquefying inside the body of a 19-year-old girl? Why did the United States Army manuals demand that Private Vincent Rossi see a monster when the mud was only holding a ghost? And why did the machinery of war, so efficient at taking life, suddenly grind to a halt because of a single scrap of blue fabric? But that was only the surface. The history books talk of grand strategy, but they forget the girl in the irrigation ditch, Anna Schaefer. The generals ignored her because she was expendable, a mere casualty of the retreat. They mocked her vulnerability, but they were blind to the miracle hidden in her terror. Why did the powerful system ignore the only tactic that could save them? The answer wasn't in the classified vaults, but in the hands of the underdog. April 17th, 1945. Heilbronn, Germany, is no longer a city. It is a skeleton of scorched timber and pulverized brick, exhaling the thick, sweet stench of a dying empire. The air tastes of old coal and oxidized brass. Here, in the freezing sludge of a late spring thaw, the grand maps of the High Command mean nothing. There is only the mud and the things hiding within it. 19-year-old Anna Schaefer lies in a shallow irrigation trench. She is wearing a uniform 3 sizes too large, the rough wool of the Reich scratching at a neck that has grown too thin for its collar. But the wool isn't the problem. The problem is the fire blooming in her lower back, a heat that has nothing to do with the sun. When the skin breaks and the filth of the earth enters the bloodstream, the body's defense becomes its executioner. It is like a radiator that has ruptured. The fluid meant to cool the engine begins to scald the wires, melting the system from within. This is sepsis. It is the silent passenger of the infantry, more reliable than any logistics train. Anna is not thinking about the Reich anymore. She is thinking about the weight of her own breath. Each inhalation feels like dragging a dull blade across her ribs. She's waiting for the Americans to find her and end the pain, or for the earth to simply claim what's already rotting. A few hundred yards away, Private Vincent Rossi moves through the ruins. He is a boy from Brooklyn who, 6 months ago, was more concerned with the price of a cinema ticket than the trajectory of a mortar round. He walks with his rifle low, his eyes scanning the sector. To his superiors, this is a sweep of hostile territory. To Vinny, it's just a graveyard that hasn't been buried yet. The establishment had a very clear view of this moment. His sergeant had told him that morning, "The krauts in this pocket are cornered rats. They don't want a handshake. They want your throat. You see movement. You put it down." Rossi's boots crunch on a fragment of a porcelain doll. He stops. A flicker of movement in the ditch, the gray of a tunic. His heart hammers against his chest, a frantic bird in a cage of bone. He levels his M1 Garand. The metal is frigid, a biting reminder of the lethality in his hands. He sees the helmet first, the iconic, terrifying silhouette of the enemy. "Kommen Sie heraus!" he shouts, his voice cracking, betraying the boy beneath the olive drab. The helmet doesn't move. Vinny inches closer, the mud sucking at his heels. He expects a muzzle flash. He expects the sharp crack of a Luger. Instead, he hears a sound that shouldn't exist in a war zone. It is a whimper, not the defiant snarl of a soldier, but the thin, wavering sound of a creature that has forgotten how to hope. He reaches the edge of the trench. His finger is on the trigger, the slack taken up. He is 1 pound of pressure away from fulfilling the manual's requirements. But as he looks down, the black box of military training shatters. There is no enemy. There is only Anna. Her face is the color of wet parchment. Her eyes are open, but they are tracking a world Rossi cannot see. She is shivering so violently that the medals on her chest, empty trinkets of a hollow cause, clink together like ghost chains. Vinny lowers the rifle. The weight of it suddenly feels obscene. He realizes that the system he serves and the system she fell for have both lied. They claimed that this war was a clash of titans. But here in the mud, it's just 2 children staring at the end of the world. He reaches out. He doesn't know why. Perhaps it's the Brooklyn in him, the part of him that remembers the neighbors, the sisters, the humans. He reaches for the flap of her jacket. To an observer, it looks like the beginning of an atrocity, the victor claiming his prize from the vanquished. But as Vinny's hand touches the wool, he feels the heat. Not the warmth of life, but the burning radiation of a body turning into a tomb. He peels back the fabric, and the hush of the ruins is broken by his own sharp intake of breath. The rot has taken hold. The smell hits him first. It isn't just the scent of unwashed bodies or the metallic tang of old blood. It is the odor of a battlefield that has moved inside a living person. The cloying, sweet stench of necrosis. Rossi's hands are shaking as he grips the edges of the girl's tunic. He doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't wait for a medic. He tears the fabric open. Beneath the rough wool, the white skin of her back has turned a bruised, mottled purple. At the center of the swelling is a jagged puncture, a gift from a piece of shrapnel that the system deemed too small to report. But the dirt of the trench has a way of turning small mistakes into terminal sentences. The wound is alive. White sightless maggots writhe in the darkening flesh. A microscopic army feasting on the girl's spine. It is a biological betrayal. When the skin, the body's first line of defense, is breached by serrated steel, the external filth turns the bloodstream into a toxic river. The liver chokes, the kidneys surrender, and the brain begins to drown in its own waste. It is a fatal flaw in the human machine, one that no manual can repair. Vinny recoils, his stomach doing a slow, sickening roll. This isn't the war he was promised. He was told he would be fighting monsters, not cleaning the rot out of children. "Rossi, what the hell are you doing?" The voice is gravel and authority. It belongs to Sergeant Miller, a man who has seen enough tactical withdrawals to have a heart made of flint. He stands at the edge of the ditch, his shadow falling over Vinny and the girl like a shroud. "She's a Kraut kid. Leave her for the burial detail. We've got a perimeter to hold." Vinny looks up. In Miller's eyes, he sees the crystallized arrogance of the military mind. To the sergeant, this girl is a statistic. To the sergeant, the rules of engagement are more sacred than the pulse in her neck. He believes the enemy is a monolith, a singular beast that must be starved to death. "She's 19, Sarge," Vinny says, his voice surprisingly steady. "She's dying of a scratch." "They all are," Miller snorts, checking his watch. "The Reich is a corpse. Don't go getting contaminated by the leftovers." That's an order. But Vinny Rossi isn't listening to orders anymore. He is listening to the rhythm of his own conscience. While the army hierarchy is already moving its pieces on a map 2 miles away, focused on the objective, Vinny is focused on the girl. He stands up, his boots sinking into the viscous earth. Without a word, he reaches down and scoops Anna into his arms. She is terrifyingly light, like a bundle of dry sticks wrapped in gray cloth. "I'm taking her to the field hospital," Vinny says. "That's 2 miles through a live fire zone, Rossi. You'll be a target for every sniper left in this ruin," Miller shouts, but Vinny is already moving. He isn't a hero in a movie. He is a boy from Brooklyn, sweating and terrified, carrying his enemy through the graveyard of her own country. The walk is a gauntlet of shattered masonry and twisted iron. Every step is a prayer. Every corner is a potential ambush. He passes a burned-out Tiger tank, its massive gun barrel drooping toward the earth like a wilted flower. The crew who manned it believed they were invincible because their armor was thick. But the ocean of history respects no thickness. It only respects the cracks. The system had dismissed the importance of individual mercy as a distraction from the mission. They believed that victory was achieved through the crushing weight of tonnage and fire. But they had fatally underestimated the resilience of a single human soul. While the generals counted their shells, Vinny Rossi was counting his breaths. 1 mile in, his lungs are burning. The air in Heilbronn is thick with the dust of pulverized limestone, making every gasp feel like swallowing glass. Anna's head rests against his shoulder, her breath coming in ragged, shallow spurts. She is slipping away. The sepsis is winning. Suddenly, a shadow moves in a doorway to his left. Vinny freezes. He can't reach his rifle. He is defenseless. A German soldier, older than the girl in his arms, steps out. His uniform is rags. His eyes are hollowed out by months of hunger. He levels a Mauser at Vinny's chest. The air grows cold, the silence between them stretching until it threatens to snap. The old soldier looks at Vinny. Then he looks at the girl. He sees the American boy, covered in German mud, holding a German child as if she were his own sister. The rifle barrel wavers. It lowers. The old man doesn't fire. He simply nods a silent recognition of a humanity that the uniforms had tried to erase. He steps back into the shadows, a ghost allowing a miracle to pass. Vinny doesn't wait. He runs. The field hospital is a cluster of olive-drab tents pitched in a muddy field, smelling of ether and industrial soap. It is a factory of survival, where the "yes but" of medicine is a constant reality. Yes, we can stop the bleeding, but the infection will take the leg. Yes, he is breathing, but the mind is gone. He bursts through the flap of the triage tent. The surgeons are elbow deep in the wreckage of men. They don't even look up. "Get in line, soldier," a medic barks. "We've got boys coming in from the front with real holes in them." Vinny doesn't move. He lays Anna on an empty, blood-stained cot. He looks at the medic, a man who has become a machine of efficiency, blinded by the sheer volume of the dying. "Look at her," Vinny whispers. "Just look at her." The medic sighs, ready to dismiss another insignificant casualty. But then his eyes fall on the wound. He sees the maggots. He sees the telltale red streaks of sepsis crawling toward her heart like the legs of a spider. The black box of his medical training kicks in. He sees the physics of her failure. If the heart cannot pump enough oxygen to the organs because the blood is thick with waste, the system crashes. "Get the captain!" the medic yells. "We need the sulfa, now!" For the next 4 hours, the world of the war disappears. There is only the hum of the generator and the clink of surgical steel. Vinny stays. He sits on a wooden crate in the corner, his M1 Garand leaning against his knee, looking like a relic from another era. While the establishment outside is busy signing surrender papers and drawing new borders, Vinny is watching the steady rise and fall of a girl's chest. He isn't thinking about the Reich. He isn't thinking about the U.S. Army. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, crumpled wad of bills, his winnings from a poker game 3 nights ago. He looks at the money, then at the girl's tattered, blood-soaked dress. In the dark of the tent, amidst the screams of the wounded and the smell of death, a new idea begins to form. A promise. Because he was an outsider, a boy who knew what it was like to have nothing in the tenements of Brooklyn, he saw a solution the experts had missed. They thought she needed a prisoner of war number. Vinny knew she needed a reason to live. He looks at the medic. Is she going to make it? The medic doesn't look up from the bandages. It's a coin toss, kid. The infection is deep, but she's a fighter. I'll give her that. She's holding on to something. Vinny closes his eyes. He is holding on to something too. But history is about to play its cruelest trick. Because while Vinny is fighting for her life, the system is already preparing to take her away. The authorities don't see a life saved. They see a liability to be processed. They believe they have the hammer. But they have forgotten that the smallest spark can set a whole forest on fire. The war ends not with a bang, but with the scratching of fountain pens in a room miles away. For the world, May 1945 is a roar of celebration. For Vinny Rossi, it is the sound of a clipboard clicking shut. Anna survives. The sulfa powder and the surgeon's blade did what the Reich's propaganda could not. They gave her a future. But the system is a jealous god. It does not like loose ends. A week after the surrender, a captain from the provost marshal's office stands at the foot of Anna's bed. He is the personification of the new order, crisp, clean, and entirely devoid of the mud that still clings to Vinny's soul. "Private Rossi," the captain says, his voice as flat as a dial tone. "Why is this German national still occupying a bed in a frontline surgical unit? The directive is clear. Non-combatants and surrendered personnel are to be processed through the displaced persons camps. Move her." Vinny stands. His uniform is a map of the last 6 months, grease from a jeep, soot from Heilbronn, and a faint, rusty stain on the shoulder where Anna's head had rested. "She can't walk yet, sir," Vinny says. The captain's quote of hubris follows quickly, a reconstruction of a mindset that values the filing cabinet over the heartbeat. "The war is over, Private. We aren't in the business of charity. We are in the business of administration. If she dies in the camp, she dies according to the regulations. That is not our concern." This is the cruel irony. The same system that spent billions of dollars to cross an ocean and liberate Europe is now perfectly willing to let a girl rot in a different kind of cage because she doesn't fit into a column on a spreadsheet. But Vinny Rossi is from Brooklyn. He knows that when the landlord tries to throw you out, you don't argue with the lease. You change the locks. While the bureaucracy churns, Vinny slips out of the hospital. He takes his poker winnings, $32, crumpled and smelling of stale tobacco, and walks into the remains of a village. He finds a shopkeeper who is trading her life's possessions for cans of sea rations. There, hanging from a hook in a dusty window, is a dress. It is sky blue, the color of a summer morning before the bombers arrive. It is made of cheap rayon, but to Vinny, it looks like silk. He trades every cent he has for it. He returns to the hospital, and in the middle of the night, while the establishment sleeps, he places the dress on Anna's bed. It is his eureka moment. He realizes that as long as she is in that gray tunic, she is a kraut. She is a target. She is a prisoner. But in that blue dress, she is just Anna. He is using the only weapon the army didn't train him for, the restoration of dignity. The transition is a time freeze. Years blur into a montage of defiance. Vinny doesn't just save her life, he marries her. He fights the immigration boards, the suspicious neighbors back home, and the silent judgment of a society that told him she was the enemy. He chooses the human soul over the national identity. The girl from the ditch becomes a woman in a Brooklyn kitchen. The soldier becomes a father who never talks about the medals he threw in a drawer. They live a life stitched together by a scrap of sky blue fabric and a promise kept in the mud. 1995, Stuttgart, Germany. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp pine and wet stone. An elderly woman stands before a grave. Her hair is the color of wood smoke, and her hands, though spotted with age, are steady. This is Anna. She has returned to the soil that once tried to swallow her. In her hand, she holds two things: a piece of blood-stained wool from a 19-year-old's tunic, and a fragment of sky blue rayon, faded by 50 years of sunlight and washing. She lays them both on the grass. The modern echo is a haunting one. We look back at 1945 and see a world of black and white, of clear villains and untainted heroes. But history is made in the gray. It's made in the deadly gap between what we are ordered to do and what we know is right. Do we see this same hubris today? The systems have changed. They are digital now, driven by algorithms and data points, but the friction remains. We still treat people like units or targets. We still let the manual dictate who is worthy of a bed and who is destined for the ditch. The story of Vinny and Anna is a reminder that the most radical act of rebellion isn't a revolution. It's a single choice of mercy. It's the refusal to see a monster when the world is screaming at you to pull the trigger. Vinny Rossi didn't win the war, but he won something much harder. He won the battle against his own training. He proved that a single human soul is heavier than the entire weight of an empire. When the world demands we see a target, do we have the courage to see a person instead? Because in the end, the cannon fire fades, the empires crumble, the borders are redrawn. All that remains is the memory of who we were when no one was watching. If you believe that stories like Anna Schaefer's deserve to be remembered, join our ranks by subscribing and like this video. We have synthesized this narrative from reputable historical archives and verified sources. However, the fog of war often extends to the history books. If you spot any inaccuracies or have additional details to share, please correct us in the comments. We strive for the absolute truth and your knowledge helps us get there. Thank you for keeping history alive.